Hello, good Friday. It's April 7th, 2017. This is Jake Cunningham, your host. Welcome to the Friday Focus. You might have noticed in the reminder that my father was still on the list, but he won't be joining us today. Today, I'm going to overview and really announce to the network that we are now carrying. I'm an official representative. White Dove Global is for the InLight Medical light therapy products that we are just ecstatic and very excited about to be carrying. And so today we're going to learn about that. And for those of you who are looking for biofeedback protocols, you can tune in next week. We are going to get back to that. But today, for those of you looking for more resources, tools to add to your practice or yourself for your own personal wellness, you have to check these out. We are in energy medicine. One form of energy, as we know, is light. I look at light as one of the 5 core principles to life. And we've all heard of the 4 elements, right? We have earth, we have air, we have water, we have fire, sun, right? Light. Now, the 5th element is the electromagnetic fields. A lot of that we can work on with the PEMF products, whether you have the biofeedback or you have the Beamer systems. But those 5 are the key elements. Light is critical for our survival. Without it, there is no life. And so I want you to learn a little bit about InLight Wellness. It's now InLight Medical. And then we're going to learn about how this works and how it actually benefits you. So this is a little infomercial today about the products, but I want to open it up too for those of you in the field who have experience using these. Please share your experience with us because we're looking forward to how you successfully use them. And if you're interested in learning more, you can buy them right through us at White Dove Global. So check out the little video and then we'll play a couple more and then we'll wrap it up.
Consider the possibility that your physiology, that human physiology, is actually built to self-heal.
I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer last December.
Built to self-heal. My name is Jody Mittigan. I'm an advanced practice nurse, board-certified adult nurse practitioner, and certified in hospice and palliative medicine. I'm also a doctor of naturopathic medicine, so I bring the worlds together about light therapy, and I'm excited to do it.
Hi, my name is Tori Heaton-Weepingay. I had injured and pulled my hamstring on my left leg. I was in pretty excruciating pain by the end of my last class of the week. I started using the product. I found within 2 weeks' time that the pain had markedly subsided. I think it's a great product. It made me a believer.
What does light therapy do? Light therapy increases nitric oxide production, increases ATP production, and the combination of those 2 physiologic functions increases circulation and reduces pain.
I've been using the InLight system for a little over a year now and had a little bit of arthritis in my hands and noticed after about 6 weeks my hands felt like I was a kid again. They were very, very stiff prior to using it, and then as I kept using them on a daily basis, all of a sudden I felt like I could do just about anything.
Doctors use it, nurses, chiropractors, dentists. NASA knows about this technology. In fact, NASA was one of the forerunners of LED light therapy back in the 80s.
Chemotherapy is a cumulative drug, and I just took so many hard hits that my feet just blew up. I tried everything to no avail. And then finally, my friend Carrie Pott, who's friends with Randall Reed, was telling Randall about my plight. And he is like, well, I have this thing. And he sent it to my friend Carrie. And she said, this is from my friend Randall, and this is what you need to do. And I did it. And it was like the first day that I remember lying in bed and I could wiggle my toes for the first time. And I was like cautiously optimistic, thinking this can't be all the things that I've been through and this is it.
Photobiomodulation. Break it down. Photo meaning light, bio meaning physiology, modulation meaning change. Intentionally put light on the biology of a human or an animal, and you will see cellular change. Light is an essential nutrient. The reason the gardens are outside and in the light is because we know plants need light. Sunlight, light is essential for life on our planet.
In January 2013, I was in a really bad skiing accident. All of last year I was dealing with a traumatic brain injury. This was broken, so they put a plate in here. Nerve damage all on the side of my head. I was seeing 5 different therapists every week. Friends of mine introduced me to the lights. And after 6 sessions in 2 days, I got off of all my pain medicine.
NASA was exploring the concept of plant life in space and the lack thereof plant life. That is to say, what is missing in space that the plants would need in order to keep them alive? Well, it's light.
Here I am. I can put my shoes on, I can walk, I have very little pain. Of course, it flares up every now and again if I do too much, but that's on me, right? I do as much as I possibly can and push it as far as I can, but I'm able to ride my bike, I'm able to work out. I did yoga this morning on my feet. I'm able to, stretch, work and live around my house. I mean, it's cool.
So if you were to do a Google search and look for information about light therapy, use these keywords: photobiomodulation, photon energy, LLLT, low-level light therapy. Those are some of the names. NIR, near-infrared light therapy, polychromatic therapy. Those are all different keywords that will elicit any number of research abstracts and research articles for you to explore.
Thanks to the lights, I have my life back, so thank you.
Awesome. Now, that's a little introduction into what these lights are. They're actually an applicable, you actually put them right on the source, and they are really, what you see is what you get. In terms of learning, we have a certification through one of our previous Quantum Masters and Quantum Academy instructors, Dr. Ginger Bowler, and she's got level 1, level 2 light certification in Boulder, Colorado. We're going to have a huge event this summer, and I can get you more information on that. But now let's look at what it really does, kind of like the nitty-gritty. How does light therapy help? What's going on here? What do the lights do? And Dr. Jody did help us, give us some insight into that, where, right, it increases nitric oxide. That's a vasodilator, supports the ATP energy production process. It increases circulation, reduces pain. But let's look at this video and check this out and learn more. This is a great animation that helps us learn what it's doing. So this is, at the very least, everybody, what you're learning is something new about technology in the field. At the very least, now you know. If you want to get involved, well, call me. I'll let you know. And these are reasonable. You can finance these for a couple $100 a month at the most, because the price range isn't a $20,000, $30,000 piece of equipment. It's anywhere for a new system, $1,200 to the new now platinum package, 6-port, 6-pad is $5. That's it. Put that is doable, not only for you, but also for your people. See, it's not only about the benefit of the therapy, but you can offer these as a new product for your practice and make actually as much as referring biofeedback systems, which isn't an over-the-counter product, right? We all know that. So there's multiple levels and benefits of getting involved with this. And I'm in because I love the product myself. My 4-year-old uses it. So check this out. This is how it works. This is called learning about the different spectrums of light and how those light is doing its job with the skin and how it's penetrating, learning more. So enjoy.
A closer look illustrates how the use of light therapy with infrared diodes can help promote the healing process in the body. At the basic level, all cells in the body have a miniature power plant within called the mitochondria. This is where our cell's energy is produced. The technical term for this energy is called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP for short. ATP is formed from oxygen and glucose, both of which are carried to cells by blood flow. Patients with neuropathy often have decreased blood flow, which means all cells, including nerves, are not receiving adequate amounts of oxygen and glucose. Therefore, the mitochondria cannot manufacture normal amounts of ATP. Nerves, most commonly in the extremities, sense this lack of ATP production by sending pain signals to the brain. In some cases, a lack of sensation rather than pain is the chief symptom, and this is the main reason for falls. Because the mitochondria are very sensitive to light, infrared light therapy can stimulate ATP production in the mitochondria. That is, if the nerves receive glucose and oxygen through increased blood flow to the nerves. Light energy stimulates the release of nitric oxide from hemoglobin into the bloodstream. When nitric oxide is released from hemoglobin, it enters the muscle cells in walls of the blood vessels. The muscle cells relax as the blood vessel diameter enlarges, allowing more blood to flow through the vessels. Increasing nitric oxide levels in the body offers a host of benefits. These can include anti-inflammation. Inflammation occurs when oxygen levels are too low, so increasing blood flow via nitric oxide reduces inflammation. Tissue regeneration. Tissues that need to heal require oxygen, nutrients, ATP, and growth factors. Nitric oxide provides an environment for enhanced healing. The key to accomplishing this? Better blood flow. Pain reduction. Pain occurs when oxygen levels at the nerve are too low. Think of how painful your finger becomes if you wrap a rubber band around it. The rubber band cuts off blood flow, thereby depriving nerves and other cells of oxygen. The pain recedes when the rubber band is removed. Increased localized circulation. Nitric oxide is increased locally when light energy is applied to any specific site. Along with it, blood flow increases at the same point. Light is composed of photons. Photons are quantum units of energy. A photon emitted at a specific wavelength or color contains the same energy irrespective of the source. Light near the blue end of the spectrum penetrates about 2 to 3 millimeters. Light at the red end of the spectrum penetrates about 8 to 10 millimeters. And near-infrared light penetrates about 20 to 100 millimeters. Near-infrared light is more energetic than visible light, less resistant to reflection and absorption, and therefore penetrates soft tissue to a deeper level. These are generalizations because the more red cells with hemoglobin in the path of the photons, the shallower the depth of the penetration. Remember, hemoglobin absorbs the near-infrared light energy, thereby releasing nitric oxide. The net result of light therapy is a cascade of beneficial chemical reactions throughout damaged nerve cells that stimulate healing. This response can be directly attributed to increased blood flow. This enhanced, localized blood flow improves tissue oxygenation and therefore plays a role in the following: improved sensation, which offers better gait and balance when walking; reduced pain, which can allow for better sleep at night, as well as reduced burning and stinging sensation in the extremities; increased oxygenation, which acts to reduce inflammation; and finally, increased circulation, which offers the body decreased wound incidences and shorter healing times.
Excellent. So that explains a little bit about the process. But now let's hear from Dr. Burke, a doctor who gets into it's a great Q&A, and then we'll wrap this up. This is a little longer of a video, but I want you all to learn and discover this and get some great resources. I can also send you more information, and you can reach me at, of course, Jake, Jake, at whitedoveglobal.com. So here's Dr. Thomas Burke, a Q&A that he had going over some of his findings and realizations surrounding the systems, the light systems here. So check this out. And this is a 23-minute video, and then we'll wrap things up here. Wonderful. Enjoy.
Tom, can you start this video letting the audience know who you are along with your title and background?
John, I'm a retired physiologist from the University of Colorado Medical School. Worked there for approximately 30 years. Retired about 10 years ago. I have a PhD in physiology, and I've been working in blood flow changes throughout my whole career.
Can you highlight some of your academic and professional achievements for the last few years?
Well, I've been very lucky in my life. When I graduated with my PhD, I went to Duke University for about 4 years on a postdoctoral fellowship to really get detailed research background and thinking in the area of kidney physiology and kidney disease. And then Colorado recruited me, and I spent about 30 years, as I said, doing research in kidney disease and blood flow and training young people to become medical students.
Tom, over the last few years, you focused on some really exciting new technologies. One of those technologies being a project you've been collaborating on. Can you talk about this new emerging technology for the human body?
John, my interest in blood flow led me about 15 or 20 years ago to examine the effects of infrared light therapy. Some people think it's snake oil, but really it has a strong background. Infrared light therapy increases blood flow at any site in the body that it's applied to. And the beauty of this is we've been able to see research efforts in healing wounds that are difficult to heal, for example, in a diabetic, hopefully to prevent amputations or at least decrease the incidence. Improving skin blood flow in other areas of the body as well, and most recently, looking at changes in blood flow to the brain. I've been fascinated by this advance in science.
Tom, has this been taken up in the broader medical community with respect to some of the target areas that you just talked about?
It is. It's gaining greater acceptance in the last several years. The beauty of it is it's a non-invasive, drug-free way, working in concert with physicians and pharmacology and pharmacists. We've been able to see an improving outcome for patients by increasing the blood flow.
What was the moment that really energized you to approach this particular field, given your background? And what was the tipping point to say, hey, this is really interesting to me, or motivated you to get into this particular area?
It's a great question, and it was almost serendipitous. I knew blood flow increased, as many of my colleagues did, that blood flow increased when you applied infrared light to the skin. The question was, what was causing this? And about 1993, a paper from Duke University suggested that red blood cells actually carry a compound, a gas called nitric oxide. And it turned out that the link was that the infrared light would release the nitric oxide from the red blood cells at the site of treatment. What is nitric oxide? In 1998, 3 Americans were given the Nobel Prize for their discovery that nitric oxide actually dilates blood vessels and improves blood flow. So it was full circle. The light increases vasodilation or blood flow. The light increases nitric oxide causes vasodilation. So it was, as I said, almost serendipitous when you put these together. But the beauty of nitric oxide is that it can help increase blood flow at any site a physician, physical therapist, chiropractor wants to increase that for his patient's benefit.
When I'm at home, my TV's remote control uses an infrared beam. And I know fast food restaurants keep their French fries warm with infrared lights. So is that the kind of infrared light you're talking about?
It's similar, John, in a way. This is called near-infrared light. It's very close to the red wavelength that you and I can see, of red sweater or red tie. But it's just outside the human body's ability to envision the light. So it's essentially invisible. There is far infrared light that you see in saunas and even farther into wavelengths that are similar to radio waves. But this near infrared light is a very unique wavelength that's used for healing, if you will.
So when you're talking about the blood flow increase, it sounds like that could be something applicable for a concussion or head injury or things like that. Is this increased blood flow one of the key reasons that clinics should take a look at this technology?
Near-infrared light has been used on the human skull everywhere from pediatric patients in the intensive care unit up to adults with certain injuries in the brain, strokes, concussions, and things like that. And it's been used for a long time, but from a diagnostic standpoint, the question raised by scientists and physicians was, if you shine a little bit of infrared light into somebody's skull and then have a detector nearby, you can detect whether the blood flow is normal, too low, or in fact too high. So it has a long history for detecting blood flow changes. What has not been used or really adapted is the effect of near-infrared light to actually repair damaged tissue within the brain by increasing oxygen delivery and vasodilation to see if you can help heal the damaged areas in the brain.
So my understanding is that you've collaborated with a team at Cerascan, a comparative imaging company that has worked with 2 military soldiers that had some brain injury suffered during conflict. What has your participation been, and what have you seen with the soldiers?
Well, I've been fascinated by your observations at Cerascan. The 2 gentlemen that you mentioned had significant injury to their brain detected by Cerascan's imaging. They underwent a series of exercise therapies and near-infrared treatment, and when you re-imaged those brains, you found a remarkable decrease in the amount of damage, if you will, to the brain. And attributing this to infrared light therapy was an easy guess for me. Now, we haven't done any placebo patients yet, but I'm hopeful that what you've seen is a direct relationship to infrared treatment to help increase blood flow, oxygen delivery, and to those areas of the brain that were injured and damaged. The brain has a remarkable capacity to heal itself.
Now, are there any harmful side effects about anything we've talked about today?
Not really. Infrared light has been used for many different conditions in the human body.
So we're really only talking about side effects in regards to what we've discussed today. Is there anything we should be worried about in terms of working with patients and potential side effects? Can you get too much of this? Is this too much of a good thing? Are there some other problems that could come down the road, to your knowledge?
John, really, I don't know of any serious side effects to infrared light therapy. However, I think you and your team are wise to collaborate with radiologists and have an MRI to rule out any potential blood flow changes that might be due to damaged vessels that would cause a bleed, to look for any potential sites of tumors in the brain before we treat with infrared therapy. So you've gone through a series of very careful analysis of these subjects. When we start to treat them with infrared therapy, there shouldn't be any negative side effects.
With these characterizations of vessel dilation, it sounds terrific that we could improve blood flow to an area that might be damaged, but do you foresee an ability to team up with other kinds of therapies that whereby 1 + 1 might equal 3, such as pairing the dilation caused by the infrared light with some medical devices? Some medical professionals have proposed creative interventions with these injuries.
It's a great question. One of the most exciting things that people have used for decades is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It started out being used in the Navy and for divers for decompression sickness. It turns out that the theory is that if you can put somebody into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber and increase their body's level of oxygen, that tissues that were damaged or injured can heal faster. We're hoping to launch, in conjunction with Cerascan, the use of infrared therapy and hyperbaric oxygen together. And think of it this way. If the blood flow or the blood vessels in a damaged area of the brain are not there, even if you increase hyperbaric oxygen levels in the blood, it's not going to get to the site that it needs to as easily as it might if you could dilate the blood vessels in that area. So the exciting thing is about other interventions in conjunction with infrared light therapy. As I mentioned, some of the drug therapies might actually get to sites where they're needed in the brain.
One of the things that was reported by the first 2 soldiers that began this therapy was that in a relatively short period of time, 2 weeks, both were indicating that they had regained the ability to sleep through the night. Additionally, both soldiers had reported some migraine-like chronic headaches from the initial concussion. However, both also discovered after that 2-week period, the headaches seemed to have diminished. The treatment had given them a better quality of life. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, certainly the headache issue is one that I think I can speak to. Headaches are sort of a painful condition, and nerves in the body, and the brain as well, need good oxygen in order to function well. Think of a rubber band around your finger. You put it on, leave it on for 10 minutes, it begins to throb and hurt. The message that the brain is getting is that that finger needs more blood flow. So if pain goes down in the first couple of weeks of infrared therapy in these warfighters, it may signify the early event, which is increased blood flow and oxygen delivery to sites in the brain that would otherwise exhibit painful conditions.
One of the things that really seemed to surprise the medical profession was the fact that with the first patient, after 9 months when the therapy ended, it seemed to be a treatment that sustained itself. In other words, it looks as if the treatment may have been permanent in nature. Do you have any thoughts or observations as to whether treatments need to be ongoing or a maintenance kind of thing? Or is it a short-term event? In other words, it was fixed and the symptoms will not come back. What are your thoughts around what you saw with the initial patient?
Well, I know you're excited, and I am as well, about what appears to be the sustainability of the therapy. However, I think we have to be cautious at this point. The first patients that were studied were treated several times a week for the first several weeks, and then the treatments dropped off to once a week near the end. The question, obviously, as a scientist I would have is that if we kept up the several times a week treatment all throughout this 12-week period, would we see even a greater improvement in blood flow, a greater sustainability? And down the road, those kind of studies will have to be done, John.
Can you give us an idea about the available research that might be out there? And are there any institutions pushing the envelope here with credible studies done or credible published articles?
John, there's some exciting things coming out of Harvard, Boston University, even the University of Wisconsin. Those 3 places have photonic, if you will, institutes in their medical schools and their institutions. They are looking at treatments of using near-infrared light therapy on the brain in areas of concussion and even several warfighters. So what Sarascan and this team is doing here in Denver really parallels what's going on in the Northeast and the Upper Midwest at several prestigious institutions.
As a professional who has really dedicated a lot of his research and application on the human body, what might you predict if you had to speculate on the potential for this treatment over the next 2 years? Of course, understanding that there is still a great deal of scientific study to be done. What might your message be to the public in regards to saying, hey, in the next couple of years, you should keep your eye on this?
I'm excited. There are many conditions in which changes in blood flow have been implicated. Medical research has shown that things like PTSD is associated with a change in blood flow to the thalamus. The question is, could near-infrared light therapy be used after Sarascan and SPECT imaging have identified actual changes in the thalamic area of blood flow? So that's one I'm excited about. Others include changes in blood flow to the frontal lobe, which apparently is a significant contributor to ADHD. Could we use near-infrared light therapy on blood flow changes in the brain of people with ADHD? Would it be safe for children? These are all the kinds of questions that come up. And the third of interest to me is that Alzheimer's patients appear to have decreases in blood flow to their brain when they're fully diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Well, I think of those people as like you and I, which have normal blood flow at some point in our life, and it must have gone down over time. Could we intervene in people who are diagnosed with early Alzheimer's disease using infrared light therapy and SPECT imaging as appropriate to delay or prevent even Alzheimer's disease from being as critical a problem as it is?
So initially, what we focused on here is on a moderate traumatic brain injury group in the military. However, I believe you're inferring that there may be broader applications for the general population, such as the geriatric and pediatric worlds, if I understand what you're saying correctly.
That's correct. I think it's wide open. Infrared light is a non-invasive, drug-free way cleared by the FDA for doing two things: increasing circulation and reducing pain. And that clearance allows physicians to begin to examine, if they think outside the box a bit, these other areas that I just mentioned.
Regarding the FDA, it sounds as though the treatment you're implementing has at least gotten an initial foothold within the FDA relative to the processes that are there. I know there's going to be more that needs to be done, but we're not talking about something that's totally experimental in the eyes of the FDA.
That's correct. The beauty of the FDA clearance is it allows any physician to use a medical device or a medical modality as he or she sees fit, even though there isn't a clearance for traumatic brain injury, a specific clearance for Alzheimer's disease or ADHD or migraines. The beauty of it is that physicians have that luxury after the FDA clearance is there to go forward. And I'm excited about the possibilities for the humans that you and I deal with in the military, as well as others.
It appears as though this can be made available to the general public. In other words, a patient might not necessarily need to go to a high-end clinic environment. In order for us to be able to work with these patients, it looks like this is something that may be able to be delivered to the masses. Is that a fair comment?
Well, I think it's a fair comment. What I like to see first over the next year and a half or so is for psychologists and psychiatrists to begin to investigate the use of near-infrared light therapy on the brain for some of their patients with controlled and very detailed and very controlled clinical studies and clinical protocols. However, at some point, certain people will need maintenance therapy. And for, I guess, over a decade now, near-infrared light has been used for people with chronic conditions, not in the brain, but in, say, diabetes, where the circulation to the feet causes you to lose sensation, you have trouble walking, your balance goes off, you may fall and experience a fracture. So infrared light has been used as sort of a 3,000-mile checkup for many, many diabetic patients over the last 10 years to keep them in a relatively good blood flow to their lower legs so they have improved sensation, less pain, less trouble walking, and better balance. And it's hard to say that it's prevented some of the falls and catastrophes in diabetics, but I think it's been out there.
We covered a lot of things here today. I'd really like to again re-emphasize the acceptance of this treatment at the broader level, the broader medical community, and exactly at the 30,000-foot level. What's really going on here with the use of this technology?
The general medical community has adopted this technology for several areas. Knowing that infrared light therapy, near-infrared light therapy will increase blood flow, physicians have begun to use infrared light therapy in conjunction with antibiotics, for example, to get to an infected wound. If you can increase blood flow using light therapy, the antibiotic gets to the infected wound more easily. So that's one area that's gained great acceptance by the medical community. Others have thought that if you can increase blood flow to the lower extremities, for example, you can help people to walk better and maintain better balance. So there are conditions in which the broader medical community looks down at infrared light therapy and says, this could help my patients in my particular practice.
Now, with respect to the brain, along that same line of thinking, a conclusion can be drawn then that perhaps the treatment can help out in terms of the concussion, mild or moderate traumatic brain injury in the impacted area. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Light therapy does penetrate through the skull, near infrared in particular. It goes to a fair distance within the skull. In fact, it's used to monitor how much oxygen is flowing through the brain at a particular time. This is especially important in pediatric patients, in patients with concussive injuries, others with things like PTSD or Alzheimer's disease. Many of these patients have low blood flow in the brain, and it's been diagnosed by near-infrared light therapy, which is applied to one site on the head, and then a detector is placed close by. Knowing that you have a deficit in blood flow in the brain then allows a physician or a pharmacologist or a neurobiologist to begin to think about how can I use this technology and knowing where the damaged brain areas are to get more drugs to that site or to improve the blood flow to that site using various technologies.
So one of the things that was exciting to us, and I'd like to get your comment upon, is the difficulty of determining whether a subject really has a traumatic brain injury, and if there are chronic situations that resulted from a traumatic brain injury, and has the imaging world come up with new ways to make that happen? From a doctor's perspective, how to verify if there has been a concussion event, and are there chronic issues associated with that? Is this real additive to the therapies we're talking about today?
I think it's very important that any physician or any private company trying to look at those people with concussive injuries know how severe the problem is. If you don't know how severe it is and where it is, it's unlikely that you could go forward with any kind of therapy to try to help someone. So I've been impressed by looking at the Cerascan imaging technology that Cerascan has provided, which shows, I think, the chronic nature of sustained injuries within the brain 6 months, a year, 5 years after that injury had occurred. The beauty of what these first two warfighters and the treatments that we've instituted in them with near-infrared light therapy has shown is that even though the injury happened several years ago, within 12 weeks, major changes in blood flow within the brain are documentable. And associated with this are improved sleeping habits, better memory, less social disruption. There are a lot of positive things that I can't believe haven't been the result of better blood flow.
I really want to thank you for coming in today. It's great to learn what you've spent such a large amount of your professional life helping further, and we do appreciate it.
Thank you, John, very much for having me.
Excellent. Well, thanks, everybody. And you can learn more. I want to take you to I want to share my screen with you here and show where you can purchase these products and learn more. Let me share my screen.